All right, let me share my screen. Okay, I just wanted to say welcome to everybody that showed up to the masterclass today. Hang on just a second. I'm so glad that you're here and that you decided to spend a little bit of time with us today, or with me today, as I go through this masterclass on silencing your inner critic, because we all have one, and our inner critics can be our best friend or our worst enemy. So before we get started, I thought I would just introduce myself in case people aren't familiar with who I am. So I'm Angie Reed. Basically, my whole entire life has been defined by achievement. I've always been programmed to succeed, to produce, and to achieve my whole life. But then when I was 46, and I was at the pinnacle of my communications career, I had a massive right side ischemic stroke that temporarily robbed me of everything on my left side. So everything was paralyzed on the left side of my body. Thankfully, my husband noticed the signs of a stroke immediately and called 911 without hesitating, even though I told him not to. So his quick thinking saved my life, and I was able to get emergency clot removal surgery right away. And as we all know too well, every second counts when it comes to stroke survival and recovery. Um, I was so fortunate that I was able to recover physically pretty quickly. I spent 2 months in almost daily rehab. So I had occupational therapy, speech therapy, and physical therapy. And I thought I was ready to go back to work because I didn't look like I'd had a stroke. Really, once I ditched the cane, I thought I was ready. And once my face wasn't drooping on the left side anymore, I thought I was ready. I thought I was Superwoman and I could just jump right back into the career that I loved and thrived in for so long. But I was wrong. I was nowhere close to being ready to return to work. Nowhere close, because my brain had not caught up to my body in its recovery. So my post-stroke anxiety and post-stroke depression were waiting to disrupt my life even more. So I pushed myself way too hard, way too fast, triggering debilitating post-stroke anxiety, PSA, and post-stroke depression, PSD. And both of those conditions robbed me of my confidence, the confidence that I had always had in myself. So I went back to work, and as a professional communicator who deals in the written word, it was really scary when the words on the page just weren't making sense. And I just was not able to write like I had before. And basically, I wasn't able to do my job the way I had before. And it was super scary. So as I struggled and pushed myself, my mental health deteriorated. That's a hard word to say. Um, and I had what I call my nervous breakdown because I lost all grip on reality. My anxiety and depression had taken over my life. I was unable to work. I was having horrible side effects, and just my life was a mess. So I felt like a shell of my former self, and I was even afraid of my shadow. At one point, I even considered ending my own life. And I don't want to bore you with all the intense details of my therapy and my mental health interventions that I had through over the years to get back to myself. I'll just summarize by saying it took several years and tons of hard work, trial and error, and investing loads of time and money into myself and my recovery. Since my strokes, and I say strokes because I did have a second one, it was much smaller and hardly warrants a mention, but after all the work I did on myself, I've been able to reclaim my confidence, and even writing and publishing 3 books since my stroke. And I'm working on a 4th book right now, all about mastering the art of resilience, because believe me, what I've learned is that resilience is a skill that can be learned and cultivated, just like confidence. The good news is I've taken everything I learned through my ordeal to help other stroke survivors reclaim their confidence and move forward with renewed purpose after their strokes. That's at the heart of my coaching program, Legacy Life Coaching. Because even though our brains may be different today than they were prior to our strokes, we're the same people on the inside. We just need the confidence to reclaim our rightful place in the world. And one way to do that is to start by silencing our inner critic. So just to give a little lay of the land and what to expect on today's call. Here's a quick peek at the agenda. We're going to talk about who our inner critic is, how our brain works, 5 different strategies to silence your inner critic. And then if you stay until the very end, I have some special offers you won't want to miss. Every single person has an inner critic. Every single person on the planet. I don't care if you're the president of the USA. I don't care if you're Hollywood's highest paid actor or a CEO of a top global company. Even Oprah Winfrey. She's a billionaire and perhaps the most famous person on the planet, but she still has an internal critic or an inner critic, and we've all been exposed to her internal critic or inner critic because hers has always been focused on her weight. So what is the inner critic or the inner voice? It's that negative inner voice that judges us. It judges every move we make or don't make. Sometimes it's the moves we don't make that it judges us on the most harshly. It's also the voice that constantly criticizes us and fills us with self-doubt. So this internal dialogue is the root of many of our self-destructive thoughts and behaviors. It already has the future predicted as a potential threat, and it's trying to protect us. So that's one thing to note, is that the inner critic is there to try to protect us, but it also wreaks a lot of havoc in our lives. So it's not always protecting us. It's also the source of self-limiting beliefs like I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not strong enough. And so for many of us stroke survivors, our inner critic is louder now than ever before, and it's not always easy to know what to do about it. Here are some of the examples of the self-limiting beliefs that our inner critic likes to tell us. Prior to my strokes, my inner critic was always telling me that I was too fat and needed to lose weight, which I wasn't, and I didn't. But after my strokes, she shifted her focus to telling me I wasn't smart enough anymore, or that I had too much brain damage to ever be successful again. But you know what? She was lying to me, and your inner critic is lying to you too. All right, so where does she come from, this inner critic? Well, she's not something we're born with. The inner critic develops in childhood as we hear harsh critics and remarks from parents, siblings, caretakers, teachers, and even our peers. And also hearing the adults in our life speak negatively about themselves can also be the cause, because we absorb what we hear from others. And as I was raising my kids, I was very mindful of this, especially my daughter. I did not want her hearing me self-criticize myself for my weight and my body, because I didn't want her to internalize and take on those characteristics of her inner voice. And so hearing negative remarks and criticism repeatedly during childhood can change the way the brain develops. Honestly, it can. So we internalize this harsh language and it becomes our inner critic. And then it becomes the filter through which we see the world and grow into adulthood. It creates a mindset that lends itself to limiting self-beliefs like low self-esteem, anxiety, and even depression. So overcoming our inner critic takes consistent work, but it is possible. And we can learn new ways to think and be. So this is an important question. Would you be friends with someone who constantly criticizes you? I hope not. I mean, God, if you have a friend like that, please kick her to the curb. It's time to get a new friend or a new friend group. We don't want somebody that's constantly criticizing us. Let's talk a little bit about how our brains work. So did you know that 80% of our thoughts are negative? So according to the National Science Foundation, 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. That's a lot of negative, repetitive thoughts. The good news is that thoughts are only thoughts. Thoughts are not facts. They're not real until we put them into action. They can be good and useful. For example, you could have a thought like, I should apply for that job. Or maybe a thought like, I know my friend is going to love her birthday present. But they can also be hurtful and unhelpful. So examples of unhelpful thoughts can be things like, no one at the party liked me, or I'm never going to be the same again. Emotions are simply reactions to what you're thinking. So it's your body's reactions to what you're thinking. So you have unconscious thoughts that are happening on autopilot all the time, and those often cause emotions. And that's sometimes why you have no idea why you feel the way that you do, because of those unconscious thoughts that are happening. It's honestly, it's so amazing the power that our thoughts have over our minds and that our brains believe what we tell them. I love this quote from Buddha. You are what you think. All that you are arises with your thoughts. And with your thoughts, you create the world. You can train your brain. That's the good news. Even after you've had a stroke, I don't want anybody on this call to ever think that just because they've had a stroke that their brain is broken. There are parts of your brain with scar tissue, but you can train your brain for a lot of different things, and you can train your mind to think positively. So right now, your self-talk is wiring your brain. Good or bad, everything you say or think repeatedly is actually wired into your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference if it's true or false. It just hears a message, and if it hears a message often enough, it'll wire it in and act on it as though it's true. Thanks to neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain's neural networks to change through growth and reorganization. Thanks to neuroplasticity, anyone can rewire their mind to become stronger, healthier, and fitter than ever before. Yes, even us stroke survivors. All it takes is time, practice, and consistency. Let's talk about some of the negative consequences of negative self-talk, or I should just say the consequences of negative self-talk, which, giving you a clue, is negative. Okay. So negative self-talk can create significant stress in our lives, not only for us, but for those around us if we're not careful. It can also impact our mental health. If you're mainly thinking negatively about yourself, you'll feel bad most of the time, and this can drag you down. So if you're already down, meaning if you're already suffering from depression, it can be hard to get back up. This is often experienced by people who have depression or anxiety. And then don't even get me started on perfectionism. Oh my gosh, my whole life I've been a perfectionist for some reason. I don't know why, but I've always set extremely high standards for myself and my teams and those around me, and sometimes even goals that were impossible to achieve. So I have had to learn the hard way that my need to be perfect only sets me up for failure, disappointment, and negative, limiting self-beliefs. So is it that surprising to know that your self-talk is controlling almost everything about you? So the important thing is to choose your words wisely and then repeat, repeat, repeat. I believe I'm a kind person who speaks encouragingly to other people, but I can cut myself down like nobody's business. The words I use when speaking to myself can be rude, harsh, mean, and even hateful. Words so harsh that I would never use them to speak to somebody else. When I was in the throes or the depths of my post-stroke anxiety and post-stroke depression, my words were the meanest they'd ever been in my life. I just wondered if you can relate to that. So if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, you're going to be miserable. But if you train your mind for positivity and happiness, those thoughts will come easier. But here's the deal. You're never going to be positive all the time. You're not going to be positive all the time. In fact, I feel like I'm a really positive person. I feel like I'm always seeing the glass half full and I'm always upbeat and positive about life. But I cannot always be positive. There will be moments and there will be days when I'm down in the dumps and saying negative things to myself. And that's okay. We can have bad days. But if we work on changing our mindset so that we can see more of the things that make us happy, we'll be better off. and you will be less likely to think negatively and have down days like in a row. You're less likely to go into a deep depression. So just to recap real quick, we've looked at who our inner critic is, where she comes from, how our brains work, and then that we can train our minds. So just a quick little reflection. What did your inner critic say before your stroke? What were the most common thoughts that you thought about yourself before your stroke? And then what is she saying now? And what will she say to you a year from now, especially if you invest in training your mind? Just think through that a little bit. And what would you want her to say to you a year from now if you invest in training your mind? Okay, now I'm going to talk through the 5 strategies for silencing your inner critic. And I practice all 5 of these and then others as well to silence my inner critic, because it's not a one and done deal. It's something that you're constantly going to have to be working on yourself to do and to improve. And like I said, practice, 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 repeat, repeat, repeat. All right. Strategy number 1. Girl, stop. Just stop. Okay. Notice your self-talk. Become aware of your self-talk and really cross-examine those thoughts. So ask yourself, is this thought true? And where's the proof? Would it stand up in a court of law? And then if it's true, you can say, is it absolutely true? Or is there another way that I can look at this? And then how does the thought make me feel? Think about your feelings, because thoughts create feelings. Our thoughts create our emotions. And then notice any storylines. I'm thinking back to when my inner critic used to always like chastise me over my weight or my body. Did she make me feel good about myself? No. And then if I look at where is it true? Where's the proof? It wasn't true. I mean, I was like a size 10. And so it wouldn't hold up in a court of law. If I'm a size 10, I'm obviously not fat. Maybe I'm not a size 6 or a size 4 where I'd want to be, but I'm obviously not fat and probably don't need to lose as much weight as I think I do. So as you're cross-examining, you really are looking at if it would hold up in a court of law, if it's truly a fact, and how it makes you feel. And then if you can notice the storylines, you can start to think through how you would like to change those storylines. And then ask yourself, what would it be like if I didn't hold this belief about myself? Okay, strategy number 2. Reposition your inner critic. And here's what I mean by that. So first, ask yourself where she's located. Where is that inner critic? Where is that voice located? Is it inside your head? Is it in your body, like your heart, your chest? Where do you feel it? Now imagine that it's pointed away from you, and then try moving it further away from you. Try different distances and locations. Now imagine, how does it feel when she talks to you? If she's further away, obviously her voice is not as strong or loud as she was before. And she never has to be inside your head again. She can be sitting on that park bench way far away from the park bench that you're sitting on, like this picture here. And it'll just notice the way it feels now that she's further away from you and her voice is focused away from you. All right, strategy number 3. Give her a nickname. And so I think I'm aging myself, certainly, by showing you a picture of Sherry O'Terry or Debbie Downer from Saturday Night Live. This is when Sherry O'Terry was on Saturday Night Live, and one of her most famous characters was Debbie Downer. And every situation you put Debbie in, she would come in with like negative comments about it and bring down any situation, no matter how happy and wonderful the situation was. So if you can think of your inner voice or inner critic as, give her a nickname. For instance, mine is Agatha. I tell people start with the first letter of your first name. So my name is Angie. So I chose an A name, and the worst A name that I could think of, and I'm sorry if you have this name, but was Agatha. Because to me, Agatha is like the name of a witch. um, and so I call my inner critic Agatha. And I picture her as unfriendly, ugly, and someone I would never be friends with. And then it's important to understand that she is not you. She is a separate entity from you. So your inner voice is not you, it is separate from you. And if you detach yourself from her, you will notice that she has less power over you. So, one of the ways I like to think about this is that she can come along for the ride, but put her in her place. So, if you were in a car with her, you are in the driver's seat. Agatha, or your inner critic, is not in the driver's seat. And hopefully, she's also not just in the passenger seat. Actually, don't let her be in the passenger seat. Let her sit in the back seat, the furthest away from you. So she will probably always be along for the ride. There's no way we can just completely eliminate the inner critic from our lives, but we can tell her where to sit. We can put her in her place. And we can, as we're driving along in our daily life, just imagine you're driving down the road as your day is happening and something pops up and you automatically have a negative thought about yourself, like I'm not smart enough. Well, imagine that Agatha, or your inner voice, is saying this to you, but imagine she's in the back seat and you can, like a toddler, getting in trouble, tell her to turn around and just tell her to be quiet. Tell her where to stuff it, and that she is not in control and that you are driving the car. So she needs to obey the rules and she needs to stop trying to drive the car. It's kind of a funny little trick, but it does work if you can play the visual game with yourself. And then the fourth strategy is stop comparing. So it happens every time we turn on the TV or scroll through our favorite social media app, or even visit a local coffee shop. We watch others. A lot of times it's passive watching, and we can see their talents, their successes, their beauty, their careers, their seemingly wealth, their possessions, and even their marital status can sometimes flow into the inner workings of our mind, and we cannot help but compare. But comparison is the thief of joy. If we're not careful, this kind of passive watching of others will kind of take over. And so we start desiring the things that they have, thinking if only we had that career, if only we had that thing, if only we had that status, or if only we had that healthy body and mind and brain, we'd be better off. So we allow this comparison to enter our lives. And we subconsciously admit that what we have isn't enough. So we begin to believe that if we gained what others have, it would make us happier and more content. I've been there, and I can admit that nothing good comes out of this thought, and it'll kill your self-esteem. So stop comparing. You're probably comparing your inside to their outside. And my coach put it pretty well the other day. I can't remember her exact words, but she said something like, stop comparing your worst moment to their best achievement. That's what we tend to do. And you all know that people are only posting the most positive things about themselves on Facebook and Instagram and all of social media. You're not seeing the full picture. You're only seeing the very prettiest part of the picture. So comparing yourself does you no good in that circumstance. All right, and then the fifth strategy is to practice gratitude. Let's see, hang on real quick. So science proves that gratitude works. Research over the past decade has found that people who consciously count their blessings tend to be happier and less depressed. So expressing gratitude can increase the levels of the brain's feel-good chemicals, such as dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. Those are the feel-good chemicals that are released into your brain that are associated with feelings of connection, closeness, and happiness. So what I like to do, and what I recommend to my coaching clients that they do is start each day with a little bit of meditation. It helps to clear and focus the mind and quiet your thoughts. And then write down what you're grateful for. A lot of people have started gratitude journals in the past couple of years. What I do is I write down 10 things I'm grateful for every single day. And I do this every morning before I start my day, before I do anything like work out or get dressed or ready for work. And then following the gratitudes, I also write down 10 self brags, or you could call them 10 positive affirmations. The most powerful statements are I am statements, like I am smart, I am strong, I am powerful, I am. And then after I am, always put it with something positive. So don't trick the system and say something like, I am so stupid or I am not smart. Don't do that. That's not the goal. The goal is to focus on positive affirmations. And then what you're doing is you're rewiring your brain. Remember, we talked about wiring those positive affirmations into your brain. So by writing them down, you're documenting them and you are solidifying the things you're grateful for. Now, here's the trick. Every day, you might not come up with 10 completely different things that you're grateful for on a daily basis. If I go back through and read my gratitude journal, I see a lot of the same storylines throughout. I'm always grateful for my kids' health, happiness, and safety. I'm always grateful for my husband and our marriage. I'm always grateful for abundance that I have in my life and having a home that's safe. So think about some of the things that you know you are grateful for on a consistent basis, but then also try to pepper in some things that you're grateful for that from that particular day or that particular event, or something that's coming up that day, so that you have a little variety in your gratitude. Now I want you to take a few minutes just to reflect on the 5 strategies. So again, now I have to rack my brain, go back through my strategies. The first one is girl, stop. And that means notice your thoughts, notice them and interrogate them. And then you are better able to understand if those thoughts are true, or if we just think they're true, or if there's a different way we could look at them. And then it's repositioning your inner voice. So positioning her so she's talking away from you, so that the voice is not inside your head, it's outside of your person, and it's focused away from you, and then focus on moving her further and further away from you until you can barely hear her. And one trick also that I didn't mention, but I like to sometimes use, and one of my therapists actually taught me this, is imagine her voice. Imagine that you're singing what she's saying to you, and sing it in a funny, like silly little tune. You can make up your own little tune, or you can put it to something like a nursery rhyme or something. But you can make the thought sound really silly if you sing it out loud. And then you kind of laugh at yourself and go, well, that was a silly thought. What was I thinking? And that also takes some of the power away from those thoughts. Let's see, give your inner voice a nickname. Give her a nickname that's not pleasant, and something that you associate with somebody that you would not be friends with. Like I said, mine is Agatha. My daughter, whose name is Gabby, we named hers Gertrude. So a lot of times when she and I are spending time together, we'll joke about how Agatha and Gertrude are trying to ruin our night. And we call them out and we tell them to go away and stop bothering us. And it's something we do together, and it really works. And then let's see, that was the nickname. And then, I'm going to go back because now I'm losing my comparison. Stop comparing, because that is obviously the thief of joy. And we should never compare our worst to somebody else's best. And then practicing gratitude. So those are the 5 strategies for managing and silencing your inner voice. Like I said, they take practice. It's not a perfect science. And there are other tricks and techniques you can use that I teach my coaching clients to manage that inner critic and to calm and silence that inner voice. So next steps, anyone on the call today, or if you're rewatching this recording because Facebook wouldn't connect to Zoom and wouldn't allow me to do this live. But I'm going to post the recording. So if you're watching the recording, this applies to you if you get to the end. So if you made it all the way to the end, good for you. You can have a free download of one of my 3 books. So I've written 3 so far: Invisible Scars, Stroke Survival, Recovery, and the Unexpected Mental Health Fallout. And that one really explores the emotional and mental health journey of stroke survivors and how we are not always in control of what we think and sometimes even what we're saying, and just the invisible side of stroke recovery. Because if you don't have lasting, noticeable physical deficits for like the outside world to see, a lot of times they won't necessarily know that you're a stroke survivor. But we all know that it's much more than just the physical. It's so much of the mental and emotional, because our brains were basically struck by lightning and biochemically changed, and they will always be changed. But there are ways that we can get around that. And it's a book of hope and positivity. I don't want you to think this is a Debbie Downer book, because, like I said, I'm a pretty positive person. I like to look at the positive side of things. I like to give hope and inspiration. So it's really the story through my particular journey, but I've tried to make it applicable to anybody else who's struggling with the mental and emotional fallout from a stroke. And then I also wrote a short booklet. It's called Mental Health Hacks: 10 Easy Hacks to Help Manage Anxiety and Depression. So I spent, oh gosh, I can't even tell you how many hours and days in mental health therapy. And actually, when I was in crisis with my mental health, when I had thoughts of taking my own life, I had to be hospitalized for mental health, behavioral issues twice back to back. So, December of 2017, I was an um, inpatient patient at 2 mental health facilities back to back in December. I think I was there for a total of 10 or 15 days. I got out right before Christmas. I wasn't cured, but I had some tools to help me get through the crisis. And after being an inpatient patient, I went through an intensive outpatient program for anxiety and depression. And when I say intensive, I mean intensive. Oh my gosh. It was 3 hours a day, 3 times a week, um, for 6 weeks. So that was 9 hours of therapy a week. And it was in a group setting. And the program was based largely on ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy, and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and a lot of practices there. I learned so many tips and tools and techniques to help manage my mental health. And that's what I teach now to my coaching clients. And that's what I wrote about in the mental health hacks. There are really ways that anybody can manage their mental health, and they're not rocket science. I mean, they're things that you go, oh yeah, you may have heard that one before, but maybe 1 or 2 of them will surprise you. And in the book, I also mentioned you don't have to do all 10 at once. Try 1 or 2 of the 10 and see how your mental health is starting to benefit from them. And then my most recent book is called Identity Crisis: You Are Not Your Career. Because let me tell you, when I had to be on disability after my strokes and after trying to go back to work and then having to be back out on disability because of my mental health issues, I lost touch with who I was. I didn't know my purpose in life anymore because I wasn't working. And unfortunately, work, like I said, I've always been wired for success and achievement. And so work, I was a workaholic most of my adult life. Even, if I go back even to high school, I was a workaholic when it came to my grades in school. I had to get straight A's. I had to be a star student. I always had to be the star student and the star pupil. So when I thought that I would not be able to go back to work in a communications career, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my purpose was on this planet. And my mental health just continued to take a nosedive. And so I wrote this book about how to overcome that identity crisis after you've lost a career or a job. And the ironic thing is, as I was finishing this book, I mean, I had just basically sent it off to be formatted. I thought I was done writing it. I got laid off from my most recent communications job. And so I had to take a big step back and go, oh my gosh, I guess what I just wrote about, I better put it into practice so that my mental health does not suffer through this layoff. And I did that. And so I pulled it back from the formatters and I added a short little epilogue to the book. And and I think it's useful and helpful to anyone who's been laid off, anyone who's lost a career from a health issue or crisis, or even if you've retired and you're not quite sure what to do with yourself now, or you're not quite sure who you are anymore without your career. I think this book will help you. And it's really designed to help you take a look at your values, your beliefs, and to realign to your life to fulfill a purpose and a passion or purpose. Because we all have a purpose on this planet, and it's probably not just to work ourselves to the bone and work ourselves to the point of having a stroke. We have to be careful about that. Actually, after my second stroke, my much, much smaller stroke, my doctor said she would not allow me to go back to work in such a high pressure, stressful job again. She said, you've got to go back in a middle manager job because the stress is killing you and it could kill you next time. Third time won't be the charm. Next, I want to talk about what is life coaching, just real quick. So if you're at a crossroads, whether or not you've had a stroke, but again, my program is designed for stroke survivors. But anytime you're at a crossroads in your life, anytime you're not sure where to go next, you're not sure what's next for you, or maybe you're even feeling like a shell of your former self. Anytime that you're ready to reclaim your confidence after something that's upset your apple cart. Or anytime you think you want more out of life, but you're not just sure how to get it, a life coach is somebody who can guide you, help you put a plan into action, and then help hold you accountable by being not only your coach, but your cheerleader and just helping you achieve the goals that you have in your life and help you pinpoint what those are, and then setting a plan for how to achieve that. And it doesn't happen overnight. It could be a 6-month plan, it could be a 6-year plan. But the key is chunking it down into actionable steps that you can take and something that's not going to be overwhelming, because we all tend to, see the big giant picture of something, and that can be overwhelming. And then we say we're not even going to try because it's so overwhelming. So if you chunk it down and you put it on your calendar and you have a plan, and then you put the steps in place and you schedule it out and you make sure it's on your calendar, you can achieve it. Now, a life coach is not the same thing as a mental health therapist or a talk therapist, but they do some of the same things. So like I myself, I've been through so much therapy throughout my entire life, not just since my stroke, but I've been in and out of therapy since I was, in grade school because of some family dynamics. And then just because I was dealing with the death of my stepfather when I was an adolescent. I was 15. And I remember going to therapy until through college and after college, and then therapy during my first marriage. And as that first marriage was breaking down, having to go through marriage counseling and then just individual counseling. But what I guess I'm trying to say through all my rambling is that I've been through a lot of therapy in my life. And so I've taken the tools that I've learned through therapy and I try to apply them to my coaching clients to help them improve their lives and move forward. But again, I'm not a therapist, and most life coaches are not licensed therapists. So we can't take insurance, but we do help you devise a plan and then keep you accountable to that plan so that you can move forward. So when you're at a crossroads in your life and you really don't know where to go from here, you really have to stop waiting and hoping that things will improve. They might, but you might have to wait a long time. So like my stroke recovery journey, like I said, it took me years to go from super, super depressed, super anxious, completely deflated, zero confidence, to having my confidence back, having my mental health under control. That took years, probably 3 years at least, and I'm still working on it every day. The good news is I've learned so much and I'm able to keep everything in check now. And everything I've learned, I'm teaching my coaching clients. I love to share that with the world. So what might be next for you if you are feeling stuck and you're not sure where to go next is to take action and step into your power. But it does take taking action. You can't just wait and hope for it to change. You need to do something. So a little bit more about Legacy Life Coaching. That is my coaching program, my coaching company. And it's designed for female stroke survivors by me, a female stroke survivor. Now, I will work with men. I have nothing against men, but being a woman and knowing the special challenges that we moms, wives, and mothers tend to have, especially with when we are hit by a health crisis, I can relate really well to other women who are going through what I went through. But I relate to men as well. It's just my coaching program is designed for women. And it's really designed to help turn your setbacks into comebacks, because we can't just have these setbacks and say, okay, I guess my life is over. I guess everything I've ever achieved, everything I've ever accomplished before, there's nothing good for me now. There's nothing good for me in my future. These are thoughts that I had, and I know they're thoughts that a lot of you are having, and they're just not true. Like I said, thoughts are not facts. These things are not true. We can train our minds, and we can stop worrying that we're not good enough and not smart enough. That's what I hope for my clients, and that's where I get my clients to transform from thinking that they might not be good enough or smart enough to knowing that they're plenty good enough, and yes, they're smart enough. Their brain works a little differently now after having a stroke, but it doesn't mean that it's broken. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It means it just works differently because it's had to make new neural connections around that scar tissue. But it is able to do that. Our brain does not stop growing when we're 25. We can grow our brain and we can learn new things and develop new skills. And then my program is also designed to help women find their purpose and stop playing small. What I mean by playing small is, okay, let me give you an example. When I went back to work in corporate communications after several stints on disability, and after also being on long-term disability for a year or so, I finally was like, okay, I think I'm ready to go back and try communications again. And I did that. And I wasn't sure what my brain could handle. I was not sure cognitively if I could still do the same amount of work and the same type of work. So I had to start small and just take baby steps. And I had a boss at the time who was not nurturing and was not super supportive of my journey. She had known me from before my stroke, and she was kind of expecting that she was going to have the nonstop go-getter Angie on every project. The thing is, I didn't take a high-level management position under her for a very specific reason. I knew I needed to take it slow and take baby steps. But I was playing small because I kept telling myself the narrative in my head that I was a stroke survivor and I wasn't as good as I had been before. I wasn't as smart as I had been before. But that narrative was completely wrong. And once I corrected the narrative, I stopped playing small. And that meant all the difference in my life. That's when I started writing my books and started really like coming into my own. And so my program is based on basically it's a three-step approach to helping you build your transformation plan. First, we start with building your confidence fortress so you can stop feeling like a victim. And this can take a number of weeks and a number of different exercises that we'll go through, but we'll build up your confidence fortress. So like, again, you can stop feeling like a victim. And then we rewrite your life story so that you can feel whole again. And then final step is unleashing your legacy so you can take back control of your life again and dare to dream again. And I love seeing my clients just take back their control and just soar with their dreams and know that nothing is off limits. So today, your call to action after this class is to book a moving forward discovery call with me. Normally, these calls are about $400 and the hourly time is about $400, but I'm offering these calls for free. And now if you book the call, and here's the link, and I'll also put it in the Facebook group as a link so you can book directly. But if you book a call with me before the 29th of December, so that's next Friday, if you book a call with me and on the call, you sign up for one of my coaching packages, I'll give you 10% off the price of that coaching package, just as my special gift for you for being an action taker, because I value action takers And I only coach 4 people at a time at the max because I want to make sure that I am fully available to you, that I am in your corner 100%. I don't want to take on so many coaching clients that I have to divide my time and attention and divide my loyalties. When you pay for my coaching program and you sign up and get started, I am committed to you and I am committed to showing up for you 110%. And so you have all of me, you have all of my background, all of my heart, all of everything I've learned, I bring to bear and help teach you so that you can live the life of your dreams. Thank you. That's the end of this masterclass. If you want to reach me, I'm at Angie@legacycoachingforher.com. And like I said, again, you can go visit me or you can just visit my website to learn more about my coaching program at legacycoachingforher.com. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming today, even though there were only just a few on the live call because I could not get Facebook to talk to Zoom. I greatly appreciate your time, and I hope to see you back here for another masterclass. I would love to get an email from you if you want a free download of one of my books. Email me at Angie@legacycoaching, or sorry, Angie@legacycoachingforher. Yeah, legacycoachingforher.com. There we go. Send me an email with the book that you'd like, whether it's, oh gosh, uh, Invisible Scars, sorry, Stroke Brain, either Stroke Brain or Angie Brain, 53-year-old Angie Brain. Invisible Scars, Identity Crisis, or Mental Health Hacks. And then someday soon, my 4th book, it's called Rise, Mastering the Art of Resilience. That will come out in a couple of months. It's basically written. Now I just have to go back and rewrite the whole thing and make it fabulous because, yeah, still have a little bit of that perfectionism in my brain. It's hard to turn that off. Again, thank you so much. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. See you next time. Bye-bye.